The online wrestling community is a bit weird. And when I say that, I really just mean they're kind of fickle. At one point, Jey Uso was the golden boy. He was the guy that people even wanted to see potentially dethrone Roman Reigns. However, in more recent times, the guy's star has fallen a lot in terms of what the online audience sees him as, which I really find to be super weird, man. The guy has been a consistent act and a constant highlight on Raw. He has done some great work, put on some great feuds, had some great promos, and some solid matches. With that being said, it's pretty easy to hear from the sound of my voice that I'm a pretty big fan of Jey Uso. I think the guy has done a lot and he absolutely should become champion one day. So today in this video, I actually wanted to talk about how Jey Uso could become champion in WWE. This is going to be a very kind of fantasy booking style video, so if you like that sort of thing, be sure to let me know in the comments down below, and I'll be sure to do more videos like this in the future. And also, while you're heading down there, be sure to leave a like on the video, as that also helps me know that you like this sort of content. With all that in mind, let's just get right into it. You see, as of now, it's been about 4 years or so since he originally challenged Roman Reigns for the Universal title. Back then, it felt kind of weird and random to have one of the Usos challenging Roman, and the only really connecting plot thread was of course the fact that they are family. But like, these matches were actually kind of incredible. Like, out of all the matches during Roman's massively long title reign, there isn't a match that holds a candle to these in terms of the emotion presented. Maybe Sami Zayn in Montreal, but that'll be up to you if you think that that actually holds a candle here. See, the way they booked the matches, and more so booked the finish of the Hell in a Cell in particular, was probably the very best I've ever seen one of those matches be booked. Like, having it be an I Quit match inside of the structure really lended itself to being another level. Like, Jey had to quit the match, and Roman more so had to make his own cousin quit the match. And this lended itself perfectly into, again, the finish, where Jimmy, Jey's brother, came down to make the save. He said, "Joe, that's your cousin." Roman started crying, and it was this honestly incredible performance. It was something that I don't think enough wrestling fans appreciated about his reign. Again, it was super early on, so it's kind of easy to forget at this point, but for me, that has been a standout moment for Jey Uso ever since. Because Jey was beaten down, he was brutalized in that match, but he didn't quit because of the pain. He didn't quit because he was beaten. He quit because Roman put Jimmy in a guillotine, and he did it to save his brother. Like, chef's kiss, dude. Phenomenal finish. And well, that single match made me want to see a run back someday. We'll get to that in a minute though. As well, after this match, both Jimmy and Jey, the Usos, would join up with Roman and properly form the Bloodline. See, the Bloodline were by far the most dominant faction WWE has seen in probably several decades. I'm sorry, Shield, I think they outdid you. And while Roman had his insanely long world title run, not a lot of people have been talking about the fact that the Usos also had the longest tag team title reign of all time. Like, those guys were dominant, put on great tag matches with just about every single team in the division, and generally speaking, this elevated Jey, in addition to Jimmy of course, to a new level, as the Bloodline were kind of a mainstay in wrestling. This would of course continue throughout to Mania, where the pair would lose their tag titles to KO and Sami Zayn, and following the fallout of them not being able to recapture the titles, Jey would of course turn on Roman. Actually, if you remember, it was Jimmy originally, but because Jey's brother was the person he trusted and valued the most in the world, Jey of course sided with him. And eventually, this led to their clash at SummerSlam. Roman and Jey, one more time, that match I wanted to see. It was okay at best. And I'm gonna be honest, I feel like the sentiment that the Bloodline storyline had jumped the shark by this point is something that I can still agree with today. Jimmy turning on Jey in this fashion didn't really make a lot of sense. Like, they have explained it since that he thought that Jey would become the tribal chief, quote unquote, and he would become mad with power like Roman, and they have further told that that is the case with guys like Solo Sikoa. However, I don't think that Jey becoming the tribal chief will automatically mean he becomes a bad guy, and if anything, it reads as bad faith by Jimmy that Jey would even go to that length, but I digress. Regardless though, this main event spot at SummerSlam did kind of prove that Jey had what it takes to be at that main event level. Now, of course, he did it previously. He made a at WrestleMania, you know, with the tag titles, which is awesome. And of course, he did have those 2 world title matches against Roman previously. And since his split from the Bloodline, he has consistently been on top of his game. He has been competing for either mid-card or world titles left and right, it feels like. with matches against guys like Seth Rollins for his world title, Damian Priest for his, Gunther for his IC title, and if I'm not mistaken, he even had a match against Austin Theory for the US title at one point too. aka the guy has been hunting for gold for quite some time. However, that adage of main event for main event Jey Uso does need to find its resolution at some point. And with the guy getting more and more over by the day seemingly, I think the time is coming up really soon. So now that we're done with all that recap, we can actually get into the meat and potatoes of this fantasy booking. See, at some point or another in the next year, we are absolutely going to see the original bloodline reform to take on the new bloodline of Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa, and Jacob Fatu. And that original bloodline taking them on is going to be none other than Roman Reigns, Jey Uso, Jimmy Uso, and Sami Zayn. Now, if it isn't overwhelmingly obvious, I do believe that the old bloodline should trump over the new bloodline. This would lead to them kind of coming together and kind of acknowledging, yeah, Roman, you were wrong, but family does come first still, and Roman kind of acknowledges the fact that he was in the wrong, maybe like a nice little set of character moments backstage before and after. However, in this time that they'd be together again for the bloodline, Jey would come to realize a few small things. And he would come to realize within himself that the reason that he couldn't win a singles title wasn't because he wasn't physically capable of it, and that the actual reason he couldn't come out on top in these matches was because deep down, he just wanted and kind of needed his family's support. And while Sami, of course, is basically his blood brother over on Raw, that support just wasn't enough to carry him to a world title. He needed to know that the people that he's been with his entire life cared about him and supported him on his way to the top. And with that now being a thing that he has acknowledged and felt, now would of course be the time for him to ascend to the main event scene. And after beating Solo Sikoa and the new bloodline, Jey would go back to Raw and declare for the Royal Rumble match. Going into it, he had a lot of opposition in this one in my mind. There's a very strong chance we'll see The Rock work in the Royal Rumble this year because he's going to probably be in one of the main events of WrestleMania, in addition to Roman Reigns of course, amongst other main event players who will probably also be challenging for a title at WrestleMania like Randy Orton. This will be a tough one to win, but I believe that Jey could. See, the last 2 years we've had great babyface winners for the Rumble, and why not go 3 in a row? So in my mind, Jey Uso of course wins the Royal Rumble match, preferably after last eliminating Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Simply because I think the pop for that would be enormous, because everyone would be thinking that Dwayne would be the winner here, but of course with The Rock still kind of embracing his final boss character, at least in my mind he would be here. It's not like he wouldn't have no way into the main event of WrestleMania if he really wanted it. So giving the actual Royal Rumble match win to Jey Uso would be a phenomenal way to prime him and ready him for his main event title shot against none other than the Ring General Gunther. Now, don't get me wrong, I have loved Gunther's title reign so far. I think he has done some phenomenal work. I'm recording this just after the Raw where he bullied Bret Hart, and frankly, I am in love with this version of his character because it feels like he is becoming more and more personal, which is a level that I wanted to see from him during his IC title reign. But now that I am seeing that in him now, I am over the moon with him. I think he is doing great, but of course, every great champion needs to be dethroned, especially every great heel champion. See, in my humble opinion, I think that these Cinderella type stories in wrestling, like Cody Rhodes beating Roman Reigns or Daniel Bryan overcoming the odds at WrestleMania 30, they are phenomenal moments. And well, I want another one of them at WrestleMania 41. So, going into the match with Gunther, there's going to be a lot of personal animosity between the two of them, as they do have a history over their time fighting over the Intercontinental Championship, but more critically, with Gunther now attacking people for their personal lives, Gunther would of course dig into his history with the Bloodline. He would dig into Jey's insecurities, how he's gone for all of these title matches and not come up with a win a single time. He would talk about how if the world was given to him on a silver platter, Jey would still find a way to fumble it. Sentiments like this would of course ignite brawls between the Samoan and the Ring General, ultimately leading to a very heated and exciting clash at WrestleMania 41. Arguably the greatest heel champion in wrestling today, against a guy who for a majority of his career was only seen as one half of a tag team, but has now become his own man and main event player. And I would book this match very eerily similar to his second match against Roman, the I Quit match that I talked about earlier, where very similarly to his clash with his cousin, no matter how much punishment Gunther put him through, he simply wouldn't give up. After multiple power bombs, chops, whatever you want to throw at him, he kicks out at 2.99999. The place comes unglued. Gunther locks in his sleeper hold, that vice-like grip around the neck of Jey Uso, but just as Jey begins to fade, he begins to power up. He begins to get himself back on his feet. He struggles, but he gets there. He gets Gunther off of him. He nails him with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Keep going as many times as you want. Super kicks. Hits him with 1, 2, 3, 4. Keep going as many times as you want with these two. Uso splashes, and he pins the ring general Gunther in the center of the ring, becoming World Heavyweight Champion in the process. The main event, Jey Uso, prophecy fulfilled. His family comes down to celebrate with him, and even the next night on Raw, Roman comes out and acknowledges Jey Uso. And that is how Jey Uso could become champion in WWE. I do know he has his match with Braun Breaker coming up because he, just won that fatal 4-way on Raw. But if I'm being completely honest, I don't think they're going to have him beat Braun so early into his title reign. And I view this as the much more likely option. And frankly put, I want to see him with that big gold belt a lot more than I want to see him with the IC title right now. However, those are just my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments down below. Do you think Jey Uso could become champion? Do you think he should become champion? Again, just let me know down there. And while you're headed down that way, it would help me out a ton if you consider leaving a like on the video, as it simply tells me and YouTube that you like this sort of content and I should look to make more of it in the future. Oh, and if you want to catch that future content, be sure to subscribe. With all that being said, folks, I think I'm gonna dip. But as always, I hope you stay safe, and that was Uzi. Bye-bye.
Know how to take control. Caffeine and Adderall keep me from falling behind. I can't sit still and I don't know how to take control. It's the same shit